You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't. Hi, Chad Franzen here, one of the hosts of Share Your Voice, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, delivering tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and make sure you're getting the best ROI, your firm needs to have a better website and better content. Gladiator Law Marketing uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and decades of experience to outperform the competition. To learn more, go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com, where you can schedule a free marketing consultation. Parag Amin helps business owners successfully navigate business and legal disputes. He's been rated as a rising star by SuperLawyers every year from 2017 to 2023, and his work has recovered and saved his clients tens of millions of dollars. Hey, Parag, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
Hi, Chad. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Yeah, great to have you. I'm doing great. Thanks. To start off here, tell me about a little bit more about your firm. It's called, I believe, the Law Office of Parag Amin, and give me an example of a creative strategy to leverage what your client is looking for that you guys might use.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So whenever we have a case, we know that despite the fact that we're equipped as a law firm to handle a case from A to Z, including from pre-litigation all the way through trial, we understand that most of our clients, almost none of our clients, would really want to be involved in an extended dispute. So what we're always looking for is an opportunity to potentially leverage a settlement. And so many times what we can do is we can look at potential third parties who might also be involved in the lawsuit and look for additional sources of revenue that might help contribute and resolve the dispute. So what can happen is in any given business deal, there's a number of parties that are involved. And so it's just really looking at the business situation itself, breaking it down, and really understanding what the client's goals are. So that's one of the things that I'll do, and my lawyers at my firm do, is we'll sit down and talk to the client about what is their ideal outcome here and what is it that they're looking for. Because looking at something from just a legal perspective is one thing, but really kind of achieving the client's business goals, I think that's what we're really here to do. And that's so important. And the art of communication and getting that deep understanding of what the client's really looking for is something that we take pride in.
You know, when you decide to go into law, there's a lot of avenues you can go down. I think if I were to choose to be an attorney, I'd picture myself like, yelling, arguing passionately in front of a judge or a jury or something like that. What attracted you to business law?
Yeah. So what brought me into it was actually an experience that I had when I was younger. So my parents are Indian immigrants. They immigrated to the United States from India. And one of the things that everybody kind of hears about is the American dream is kind of this dream of entrepreneurship and being your own boss and making it in America. And so my dad took his life savings from working at a W-2 job and he invested it into this business in the store in Florida. So I still remember I was younger, but we moved to Florida and my parents would be working like 70, 80 hours a week. And I'd hardly see them. I'd usually spend my time with my grandmother, my dad's mother. And during that time, my parents are trying to make this store work. And what happened is my dad had bought the entity that owned this store, like the company that owned this store from the former owner. And so after working like all these hours, after about 2 years, the franchise or the taxing authority in Florida comes knocking on his door. And what happens is they tell him that he owes a couple $100,000 in unpaid sales taxes. So he says, well, that can't be right. How's that possible? I don't even make that kind of money. So how is it possible that I could owe hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid sales taxes? So what he didn't know is that the person he bought the entity from had not paid his sales taxes for years. And so what happened to my dad is that unfortunately he was faced with the choice of either pay all the sales taxes or shut down the business. And he chose to shut down the business because he just didn't see a way out. And so unfortunately, he ended up shutting down the business and went back to a W-2 job that he still works. And so not that at this point, it's more of a choice that he continues to work. He's got this passion for work, but still, um, it was a reality check in terms of uh, having the right kind of legal representation is so important. And I didn't want that to happen to my family or somebody I cared about, or really ideally to anybody else again. And so that's why I had set the target even as a younger person to eventually go on to college and then law school so I could help business owners avoid this very kind of thing.
So that was when you knew that you wanted to become an attorney?
Yeah, that's right.
How did you get started in the legal industry?
So I graduated from the University of Southern California back in 2011. So at that point, the economy was still reeling from the '08 collapse. And so I got my start doing a lot of contract type work at large law firms, which like the AmLaw 100, the top 100 biggest law firms in the country. And so a lot of the work that I did, though, as a lawyer was more like menial type work, document review.
Mhm.
I like to refer to it as essentially glorified monkey work, right? I'm just looking through documents, saying, okay, this is responsive to this issue or that issue. And they were large scale types of disputes. So, like antitrust, one huge company suing another company over antitrust type accusations and unfair competition accusations. Another one related to a pharmaceutical company who needed to do an internal investigation about potential off-label marketing, that kind of thing. So, at that point, while I was doing that work, I had gotten this advice from somebody that, project your life out from the path you're on by about 10 years and see what that looks like for you. And if you look at somebody who's been doing this for about 10 years and has been successful at it, what does their life look like? And is that something that you really want? And so I did that one day, and I really kind of took a hard look at, okay, what is that path like? And is this something that 10 years down the road that I want to still be doing? Whether it's as a senior associate or as a partner at a large law firm, do I really want to be representing huge corporations in antitrust disputes or relating to internal investigations and that kind of thing? And during that internal reflection, I realized that that's not something I really wanted to do. What I wanted to do was work with business owners. And so I made the choice then to just go ahead and try to start my own firm. It was always a goal of mine to go ahead and start it. And it's kind of like that Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is right now. And
Mhm.
so I just decided that if the economy is struggling and it's a little bit of a challenge and I'm not satisfied with the work that I'm doing right now, like I don't find it personally fulfilling, then I might as well just take a chance on myself, start my own law firm and see how it goes. And luckily, because when I was in law school, I was in the USC Small Business Clinic, which helps business owners throughout Southern California. And um, and now, like then it was mostly Southern California. Now it's kind of expanded throughout the state. But they'll provide essentially free legal services to business owners in terms of forming companies and that kind of thing. And so I did have that experience. And so I decided that that's where I would start. And I got a number of just client referrals and that kind of thing. It just kind of snowballed. I got a few clients and then a few more. And then what happened is that a lot of the cases and inquiries that I was getting was about litigation. And so I was told that when I was in law school, a mentor told me, if you want to be a really well-rounded lawyer, you need to learn how to do both transactional work and how to do litigation work. And so I started doing more litigation work, partly out of that advice and partly out of necessity. And I found that, and the necessity being that being a business owner, you've got to keep your doors open, you got to keep the business running. And I found that I actually enjoyed it a lot more. So I enjoyed the competitive aspect of it. I enjoyed the strategic aspects of it. I enjoyed that ability to try to right a wrong, kind of similar to the situation that or analogous to the situation that my dad had, is that I can now fix a problem for a business client. So I found that really exciting.
So, you started out, you kind of got clients. Did you have to do any marketing or was it mostly referrals?
Yeah, great question. So I did do a little bit of marketing, but it was like free marketing, posting online. websites such as Avo, answering questions for free, that kind of thing. I didn't have the budget to just go and spend on marketing, so it had to be more like grassroots type stuff. And then also, luckily, I put the word out to friends that this is what I'm doing, and then being at large law firms, many times would get these smaller one-off things that the large law firm couldn't take because it was too small. So it was perfect for me. So they'd refer it over to me.
What was something that you kind of discovered that, in the midst of starting your own business, which you'd never done before, probably, that you didn't know that you didn't know? Like, oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a long list. I will say that a lot of school, including, so I was a finance major in undergrad, then went on to law school, but I was lucky enough to have a number of internships throughout and varied internships. Um, I worked in like real estate, management consulting, the financial services industry, and so I was able to get. I was lucky enough to find really good mentors in those spaces too. But the reality of things is that when you learn things from school or you learn things in an internship at a highly organized company, that is going to be entirely different from when you try to go out and figure things out on your own, right? So everything from as simple as you got to have a business license from the city, and then you've got to report and pay those taxes to both the city, because I'm in Los Angeles, that they have a tax on top of state tax, on top of federal tax. You've got to find your accountants. You got to learn how to handle payroll. You've got to make sure that you're compliant with like employment laws, wage and hour laws in California. So there's a lot of regulations that go into it. And then also the one of the hardest aspects of any kind of business, I think, is the people aspect. People have their own motivations as to why they go to work. Um, there are different things that motivate different kinds of people, and then having people come together and work harmoniously to create great outcomes for clients, that I think it's not a skill that I was taught. It's not a skill that I've heard many have taught or have been taught, and so it's really a process of self-education.
What does growth look like for the law office of Parag Amin, and what are some milestones associated with that growth? Like, did you started out on your own by yourself, and then kind of how have you grown from there?
Yeah, so growth has been the number of people. When I started, I was doing everything. I had to, when I had to mail something, it would take me 15, 20 minutes because I'd have to print it, sign it, scan it, put it in the envelope, seal the envelope, put the stamp on it, then take it out to the mailbox. I was depositing my own checks at the bank. So all these little things that I had to do then that I don't really have to do anymore, because I've got people that help me do those things, more of those menial tasks. So people has been a big one. Financials has been another big one. Um, the really neat thing is the more money you make in business, when you're just starting out from like the 0 to 100,000 mark, it feels so difficult, and then you move up from like the, let's say, the 100,000 to the $500,000 mark. You think, oh my God, this has gotten better, but there's different stresses now when you get there. And then you go from the 500,000 to the $1 million mark, and you're like, okay, it's different. They're different stresses. But at each level, you realize that the really neat thing is the more you generate in revenue, as long as you're doing it well, you're delivering more value to clients, and it creates a whole nother opportunity for you to be able to have people come in to help you. So $1 million plus business is going to be easier many times than running like $100,000 or a $50,000 business. It's just getting through those different breakpoints. So I would say growth. We've grown in every single way. I've grown as a leader as well. I've taken a lot of workshops and self study to improve my skills. Everything from management skills to people skills to how to actually effectively run a business.
Was it a big leap to hire your first staff member? Like a big gulp?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. It's scary, right? Because now you're taking a big chunk of money and you're giving it to somebody, and you're not sure that you even really need that person. Because I think that many entrepreneurs, at least I was this way, and maybe to a certain extent, I still am. I still feel like I can do things better myself than if I delegate it. And there's that process of learning to trust somebody to be able to take care of it for you. Because the reality of it is that even if you are the best at sending a fax or drafting a simple letter, is that really the highest and best use of your time, or is it better given to somebody else? And so there's that process too, just feeling comfortable of delegating things, and the art of delegation. That's a whole nother thing, right? So it's the whole idea of delegate but don't abdicate, right? Still keep check-ins, still make sure that things are being done correctly.
What are some of the things or maybe highlights that you're most proud of during the history of your law office?
Yeah. So, oh man, there's quite a few. So everything from trying and getting great verdicts for clients to um, really kind of learning how to even appear in a courtroom, right? So the first time I went into court, I hadn't really had the experience of somebody teaching me how to handle going to court. And so what happened is I go to the courtroom and I'm waiting for my case to be called, and I'm near the front. I'm ready to go in. And then I realized that, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do once I walk through these doors. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So what I do is like I just pull out my phone, pretend like I'm checking it, and then shuffle to the back of the line. So I can actually watch everybody in front of me to see what they do and how to handle it. So what they do is you got to check in with the clerk for cases, and so you hand out a business card, and you're supposed to give the clerk your business cards. Well, I don't have any business cards, so I get to the front and I tell the clerk, I'm like, well, I don't have my business cards on me, and which is true, but I didn't tell her I didn't have any business cards. I
Right.
was like, and she's like, just like kind of disappointed, and she gave me like this pad that I call like the pad of shame. It's like you just handwrite your information and you give it back there. So things like that, just figuring out how to handle those kinds of things. And now I've gone from that to like trying a whole case successfully to feeling comfortable in a judge's chambers, whether it's a personal conversation or because you're called back there during trial or whatever to work something out. One of the most um, profound experiences, I guess, or one of the neatest experiences that I'm really proud of is we had this case randomly for whatever reason. This is just kind of how it's worked out. Is so, like my birthday is on Christmas, and so somehow right around December time, I get these random cases where it's like usually it's an elderly person that something bad has happened to, and
Hmm.
it's usually like a case that's like doesn't really fit the type of case that we take, but nobody else has taken this kind of case, and so this case that came in was a referral from a friend of mine from law school, and he said that there was an elderly woman. She's in a wheelchair, and she lives on the third floor of her apartment. There's one elevator, and that elevator repeatedly breaks down. It repeatedly breaks down. And whenever she calls, they just kind of ignore her or just tell her, okay, we'll take care of it, but they don't really. And so what happened at a certain point is the elevator broke down, and it had been broken down for about 6 days, and she calls the management company and says, I'm running out of food, I'm running out of water. Um, can you please fix this elevator or possibly, help me? Like my pharmacy's down the street, can't use the stairs. And the person on the other line says, it's not my job to go get you food or medicine, and then hangs up.
Mm.
So that's the case that comes to me. Now, this isn't really the kind of case that we take, but and it wasn't even a case that I really thought would be worth any kind of money. But the nobody else was going to take this case. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to give back. Like nobody's helping this woman. I will take this case. I'll try to help her. So we file this lawsuit. We litigate against the company. It turns out during discovery that they fought us tooth and nail to prevent us from getting this information. I find out that the part that they needed to replace was about $6,000. And they go on and on about how they don't have money to make these replacements. So I'm like, okay. And then I do some additional work. We issue some subpoenas. Turns out this company had over $30 million in cash and cash reserves that they simply chose not to use for the repairs. So they had it, but they just kept the repair budget artificially low, just refused to do it, despite the problems it would cause to clients. So, anyways, we litigate this case. We ask the court for leave to amend to ask for punitive damages, which the court grants. And this particular judge was known to have a little bit more of a defense slant, not really plaintiff friendly. But even that judge was like, this seems pretty egregious to me, counsel. Allowed for us to have punitive damages, which is to punish the corporation, which can be very difficult to even get added into a lawsuit, let alone by a judge that's got more of a defense slant. Anyways, fast forward, we were able to settle this case for over $1 million for the client shortly before trial, and it's more money than she's ever had in her lifetime. And this is like, it's like in her older age. So what was really neat was she was able to take that money and she gave it to a number of nonprofits to support them. And she actually ended up donating most of the money. And I met up with her because it was in downtown Los Angeles, and I was there for a trial call. And she wanted to come meet me, and it was a little bit challenging for her because she is in a wheelchair. So she has to take special access transportation, and my office is in West LA. So it takes her about 2.5 hours or so to get here. So I said, you know what, I'll find a time to come meet with you. And I did, and it worked out perfectly because it was just before my trial, and I had to be there anyways. And she gave me a couple nice gifts and told me, and that's actually the banner right there is one of the gifts that she gave me. So it's like it's supposed to be like intended for good luck and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
she just told me how much it meant to her that I stepped in and helped her. So that really meant the world to me.
Yeah, very cool. That's a great story. Thanks so much for sharing that. Hey, I just have a couple more questions for you. You talked about going to USC and then starting your own firm in LA. What were some challenges that might be unique to that rather than, starting, LA is huge and it's got a huge number of people. What are some challenges that are unique to that, maybe rather than starting in a smaller community?
Well, so it's a great question. I think that you're up against a lot of competition.
Mm-hmm.
So the bigger the community, the more the competition, as opposed to a smaller community where everybody, let's say, if you've got connections, family connections or something where people already know you, then that makes it a little bit easier because you already have a built-in network. Whereas when you're going in to a city like Los Angeles, starting from scratch, you've got some of the biggest law firms in the country located in Los Angeles. It's a major market. So you're up against a lot of competition. You have a lot of lawyers here in Los Angeles that you're competing against as well, including solo lawyers. So, and you've got lawyers who've been here for decades. So they've got that built-in network as well. So the question is, how do you get that trust? How do you get that credibility with people, especially just starting out, such that they're going to trust you with their case? So that is kind of a unique challenge compared to other cities.
Yeah, I would imagine. Hey, one more question for you, but first, how can people find out more about the law office of Parag Amin?
Yeah, to find out more about my law firm, you can go to my website at www.lawpla.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at Parag Amin ESQ, so at PARAGAMIN ESQ. And we've also got a YouTube channel. So if you just type in the law office of Parag El Amin, you should be able to find our videos, which are free. And we're creating more of them to help business owners to provide just free advice and free tips that business owners can use to navigate some of the more common issues that come up.
Hey, my last question for you. So you talked about how you kind of you did that exercise where you extrapolated your life 10 years down the road and saw your kind of what you thought about your own future. Do you still do that exercise? You're still, quite young relatively. Do you still do that? And what are your goals for the future?
Yeah. It's funny. It's all relative, right? A person who's like in their 30s feels like, well, I'm getting older, but the guy who's 40 is like, I would love to be 30 again. So to answer your question though, Chad, I do. Self-reflection and thinking about where it is that I am and where I want to go is something that I do pretty frequently. And the reason I do it is because if you don't really make a decision about where you want to go, then it's really hard to get there. So a good analogy is like if you went and said, well, I'm going to build a house. Somebody came to you and said, I'm going to build a house, Chad. And you said, okay, what's the house going to look like? And you say, well, I'm not sure. Well, okay, I get it. How many rooms is it going to have? You're like, I'm not sure. Okay, how many bathrooms? I'm not sure. I think I'll figure it out. Then you might not have confidence in the person to build that house, right? But that seems so simple and common sense. Like, how are you going to start building a house if you don't know exactly where it is that you want to go? Well, the reality of it is, like, how do you build the life that you want if you're not really kind of looking at how do we do this, right? And we're not taught this, unfortunately. At least I wasn't in the public school system that I went to. So it's just it's a process. But I would encourage everybody to do it because it's been profound for me. It's made amazing differences in my life and my family's life in terms of like where I was versus where I am now, both like personally, spiritually, financially, huge differences.
Sure, I bet. That's great advice. Thanks so much. Hey, Parag, it's been great to talk to you today. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your story. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise, Chad. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So long, everybody. Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.